Hi, this is Eric Smith. Time to do another quick look video, and I thought I would do it from Exodus, the 4th chapter, the 21st verse, and the word of, and the word of God reads this way. And the Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand, but I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. In this particular verse, we have the Lord speaking to Moses and commissioning him to go to Egypt to set up what eventually would be the Exodus, where through signs and wonders, the people of God, the children of Israel, would be delivered. This verse starts and it says, And the Lord said unto Moses, the Lord speaking to Moses directly, When thou goest to return into Egypt, because Moses was originally from Egypt, and if you read this story in the book of Exodus, you know the background. See that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh. So Moses was going to Egypt to do signs and wonders before Pharaoh. Pharaoh had to see those things. And God says, Which I have put in thine hand. So it is God that's going to give Moses the ability to do the signs and the wonders, because to be honest with you, it's from God. But the end of the verse reads, But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And that's the part of the verse that we may scratch our head about. It says, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So it actually brings up many questions. The first one is, was Pharaoh's heart already soft or neutral and God made it hard? No. Romans 8:7 says the carnal mind is hostile to God, and Ecclesiastes 7:20 says there is no just man upon the face of the earth that actually does good who doesn't sin. Mankind is already sinful, and they have a wicked heart, and Jeremiah 17:9 talks about that. So Pharaoh already has a sinful heart. It's not like he was a nice guy and God just made him hard. So that's not it at all. The second question would be, if Pharaoh already has a sinful heart, why would God need to harden it? Well, if you look at the last part of the verse, the point of the hardening is that is so that Pharaoh wouldn't let the people go. All sinners are capable of any type of sin. Now this is true. But God restrains them so they won't commit certain sins to the max that they could. Yet when it suits God's purposes, he moves in the heart of the sinner through his commands, through circumstances, and even other people, and in other ways he may not reveal, so that person will be hardened, because God has taken away any restraint so that the sinner will sin without any remorse or regret. And this is what happens. God can move a person that already has a sinful heart to be hardened about a certain situation or a certain sin where God's not going to put any restraint at all. That sinner is just going to do exactly what he's capable of doing, and God takes away all restraints. In this respect, God is hardening the heart. Because if you read the scriptures about him hardening Pharaoh's heart, you'll see, if you go further in the next, I would say 10 chapters, 10 times it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. But there's 10 times where it says Pharaoh's heart was hardened, or Pharaoh did it. So you see a compatibility there, where God is the first cause, but it doesn't take away from Pharaoh's responsibility of his heart being hardened. God's moving in him, but he's not the author of evil, and Pharaoh is the one that's doing what he would do as a sinful person, just based on the circumstances that God is moving in. Yet then we have to ask the third question. Why did God harden Pharaoh to not do what he wanted him to do? Well, Exodus 9:16 and Romans 9:17 tells us that it was God that raised Pharaoh up to show in him God's power, and that God's name would be declared throughout the earth. In other words, God would be glorified through his many signs and wonders that Moses would do, and that Pharaoh would get upset about. Dear Christian, when we read in the scriptures about God hardening somebody or giving them over, this is not God zapping them because they're good people and now he's making them wicked or nasty or hardened. They're already sinful. But if God takes off the restraint and wants that person to sin in a particular way, that person's already going to sin. God's just restraining them. When he takes off that restraint and does circumstances that's going to move that person to sin in a particular way to serve God's purposes, it's God that's hardening, and yet Pharaoh is still responsible for it. And that's why God did it. He did it to show his power and that his name would be made known throughout the earth. We can't think that Pharaoh hardened his own heart without God being involved with it. God was involved with the whole thing. So, this is Exodus chapter 4, verse 21. I just wanted to do a quick look to just remind you, Christian, about God's hand being in everything. Sometimes we don't want to think of it in that respect. We think because man is responsible for his sinful actions that God is a hands-off God. But he's not, because everything serves God's purposes. Even the hardening of Pharaoh's heart serves his purposes because it makes God known, and it makes the Exodus much more glorious because God showed signs and wonders. Pharaoh still didn't want to let the people go, but eventually he would, and God would get the glory. And notice, the nation of Israel's story of the Exodus would spread throughout the pagan lands. They would all know about it. Even when Israel was being disobedient, they still knew about this, and it made God's name known. As always, if the videos on this channel have encouraged your Christian walk and edified you in any way whatsoever, but you have not subscribed to my channel yet and you want to, hit the button. If you want to leave any comments, please do so, but please do not be snarky. Please do not be profane. We want to be Christ-like in everything we say and do as Christians. And until we do another quick look, don't let these verses that seem kind of difficult to grasp about God hardening make you think that God wasn't in it. We can't negate God and his attributes because we think it would make him look bad that he did a particular thing. No, God is doing everything for his purposes and for his glory, and that included hardening the heart of Pharaoh. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and God bless.